Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, hi everybody. I'm Gabriele Cerami, a co-reviewer for TripleO Quickstart and TripleO Quickstart Extras project, and member of the CI team. What we're doing today in this deep dive is fill the gap in knowledge some developers may have about Quickstart, especially after we started the migration of the upstream CI to this tool. I'll drive the presentation, but any other member of the team will jump in at will. When I forgot something, I'll say something wrong. So I posted the agenda on the chat. I had to change it a little because I know live demo do not work quite well, and I don't want to lose the audience. I hope we can leave some time for the questions too. So, okay, we start we start with some history. The Quickstart project was born roughly during the test days. From the need to offer an easy way to deploy and test OpenStack through TripleO. The main focus was the experience for the new user, so the user could easily deploy TripleO and test it. From the initial proof of concept, an RFE was born with the goal of initially replacing Instack weird setup. And that is the tool that is dedicated to set up an environment with virtual machine to deploy TripleO to. The implementation of these RFEs, the repo that is now OpenStack/Quickstart Extras. Let me share my screen. Okay. TripleO Quickstart. This is what is now replacing the Instack weird setup. With time, it made more and more sense that the improvement of the user experience from one side will meet the need of the reproducibility of CI results. So we began to push the adoption of Quickstart as the tool to drive CI jobs upstream. And the implementation of this parallel goal is mainly in the repo TripleO Quickstart Extras. So Quickstart Extras is a collection of composable rules that drive all the parts in the deployment that are not the setup of an environment and cover many options that may be activated in the deployment. Okay, so Quickstart uses Ansible, but in a peculiar way. The workflow we decided to adopt doesn't use Ansible modules as much as one can think. The approach we are implementing, especially for the extras repo, is to create bash script from the Jinja templates, and then from basic shell modules in Ansible, launch the scripts. So in the roles of TripleO Quickstart Extras, we could pick the most used probably role right now is your cloud deploy. And what we can find in the main task it's a clean set of tasks that just include the main areas of this role. So you can see that we are including a task that is called create script. This create scripts task. Let's take the Jinja template and create the bash script that will in turn start to deploy. We can see the bash templates, the Jinja template here. This just add or removes certain piece of the bash script depending on the deployment variables. In the end, is the rendering of this template that is executed. This may go against a number of best practices for Ansible, but it has some advantages for us. The user can decide to let Quickstart only create the scripts and then allow the user allow himself to launch them manually. Basically, the user is presented with a ready environment to play with, and he or she can take full control of the deployment from that point on, skip some steps, and relaunch some parts. This may be difficult if it was implemented with Ansible modules. Moreover, the creation of the script prior to its launch makes user able to compare the steps that will be taken for the deployment with the existing documentation. TripleO documentation, RHEL OpenStack as a documentation using bash steps, so it's easier to compare them. And we also have a syntax here, you can see, that can create documentation on the fly. So the documentation is created from the bash script that is created, and it's always synced. The documentation is always in sync with the step we are including in the script. So how do we decide what part of the deployment to launch and what we want to skip? You may have seen this in the main task. We are using a mix of Ansible tags and variables, but we are moving more on the variable approach lately because tags are hard to combine with complex logic, and the mix is creating confusion. Also, we are not using a single playbook that is capable of supporting all the combination of composable roles from extras. So you may see in Quickstart, we have some preset of playbooks that include parts, but not include others. And we usually encourage to create custom playbooks that include only the part that you want to run. The most generic playbook we have right now is Quickstart Extras that include tasks both from Quickstart, so the setup, and extras of the deployment. Other design decision that to consider from the developer perspective are that Quickstart should use the less privilege as possible. And one of the main reasons was to make user deploy Quickstart on machine they don't have access to as root. We're not seeing this as much as we expected, so this may change in the future. And another important thing is that we're trying to make Quickstart depend on extras repo. This is allowed, but the extras repo cannot depend on Quickstart content. So, or it could not be called an independent collection of composable roles. Okay. How do we set up Quickstart for local use? We currently need a machine that acts as a virtual host, and the current requirement depends on what you want to deploy. Hardware with 32 gigs of RAM is the minimum, I think, and should be enough for deployment with 3 or 4 nodes. We suggest not to run Quickstart as root and run it from a machine different from the Virtuos. It's possible to launch it from Virtuos, but with some minor workarounds. So being created mainly for the new user, Quickstart can be cloned. The repository can be cloned, but it's designed to clone itself from the single main script, quickstart.sh. So this script is able to clone itself, all the repo, and then launch a Quickstart deployment. Okay. Let's see some most used arguments to pass to Quickstart and discuss what they imply. So the only required argument is really the virtuost. So this may be an IP address, or as someone is showing on the chat, can be the local host address, but with ending in 2, so 127.0.0.2. This is because Ansible doesn't work very well. It considered localhost a reserved IP.
There's another question about what's the difference between clone and no clone.
Yeah, I was going to talk about this now. So first we are seeing the release, so we can select the release, the upstream release we want to deploy Quickstart. The default right now is Newton. The configuration we talk more later. Okay, clone and no clone. So this the default for Quickstart comes with the least knowledge of Quickstart possible. So the default is for Quickstart to clone itself. Every time we launch Quickstart with no other, without the no clone argument, it will create a clone of the latest of the latest version in its local working directory. So this may be, this is useful for for the user mainly. If someone wants to tweak Quickstart, it may want to use the no clone option. So the run will take into consideration local modifications. It may make sense to change the default, but I think it's fine since the actual default requires the least knowledge from Quickstart. This go hand in hand with with how we are currently cloning the extras. So if you want to do the same thing and tricking Quickstart extras, the problem is that Quickstart creates a virtual environment and install all its dependencies in it, including Quickstart extras. So if you want to use the local version, you may want to use the file URI here. So no clone and changing the requirements here to take extras from the local repository. Other very useful options are tear down and clean. The difference between the two is that you've seen that Quickstart can clone itself and create some file useful for the inspection of the deployed machines. This file and the clones, I think also the clone stored in the local working directory. When you use clean, you delete the working directory. On the virthost side, we have the teardown argument that has 3 options. Yeah, 4, but 1 does not do anything. So with nodes, that is the default. We only delete the nodes we created with the previous deployment. With virthost, we delete the nodes and all the setup we're done in the virthost. So and user is created, everything is put there. The libvirt is a user session, so most of the things are stored there. And with teardown virthost, we'll delete that. And with all, we are also deleting the network that is created inside the virthost. So if you want a clean slate to start with Quickstart, you may want to include the clean option, the clean argument, the teardown argument, and also maybe do not add the no clone. So you're sure they're using the latest version of Quickstart.
Yeah, Till just mentioned in the chat that I should say some stuff on the video because the chat won't be part of the recording. But just to go back to clean, basically you should almost always include -- clean unless you are specifically trying to save the previous files, like you're trying to run further commands on a deployed environment. The reason we don't have it default to that, even though you should almost always use it, is because it's deleting files off a user's machine, so don't really want to delete stuff by default without any warning. But without using -- clean, you can kind of run into the same problem as you do when you are using no clone, where you can have stale Quickstart or extras content and run into old bugs that way.
Okay. Okay, since Quickstart has some start and stop options, so you can cover some steps in a run and some other step in another run. One useful option is retain inventory. So the Ansible inventory is generated dynamically, and also the SSH configuration for the nodes are generated dynamically. If you don't specify retain inventory, the inventory will be regenerated, and all the previous all the information in the previous run and the bullet node will be lost. So if you're using Quickstart in a modular way or start-stop way, so you're making some step in a run and another step in another run, we may want to use a retain inventory. So this will not delete the file and reuse the same information. So this is run with retain inventory, adjust the continuation of the previous run.
Yeah, and to be clear with the clean thing I just said, basically with retain inventory, you wouldn't want to clean your working directory because that is where the inventory is stored. So if you did retain inventory and -- clean, you would still wipe your inventory.
Yep. Okay, so yeah, to be clear, Quickstart is setting up a provisioning, the virtual environment, the virtual machines. Quickstart does not include any setup for any other more complicated topologies. So the first part of the Quickstart run is dedicated to the setup of the environment. Yeah, we're creating the non-root user. We are setting up the network for the libvirt. We are creating the virtual machines. We are creating the inventory and preparing the SSH credential and the configuration to access directly from the source to the undercloud and overcloud nodes. By default, you may see that the only thing we are running here is the provisioning, the environment creation for the virtual machine. We are creating the undercloud and overcloud scripts. We are installing the undercloud, setting some things up after, but only after tearing down only the nodes. So the default situation for us is someone that wants to play with the overcloud, the TripleO template, and everything that concerns the overcloud, and wants to be put in the situation where the undercloud is already installed. This is what we're assuming. Okay. I think we covered the most useful, well, most everything. Okay, let's continue with the configuration. How do we decide what we want to deploy, what we want Quickstart to deploy? So with the migration of CI to Quickstart, the upstream CI to Quickstart, we had to change a little the way we are configuring some jobs. So if someone is already accustomed to use the minimal and minimal pacemaker, for example, configuration that are here, should know that they are deprecated, and we are going in favor of splitting the configuration file in smaller configurations separated by the scope of variables that are inside the configuration. So in detail, what happened was that it was really difficult in CI to understand what really a job was testing. So a job called HA was testing also overclock deletion, and it wasn't clear from the name. So the feature of overclock deletion was not included anywhere, and the only way to know that was to follow the bash script, the TripleO CI bash script. So we decided to group all the variables that configure the feature we wanted to activate and test on the job in a single file, and that's how the feature set file was born. We are currently not using consistently across the environment, but the goal is to allow a local deployment to match what the CI job is testing, just including a single configuration file. There's a matrix in the documentation that show what features are activated by what feature set file, but we can see here what, for example, we can start. Well, feature set 002 is not used at the moment and contains a lot of things. But the final feature set should contain, I think, only up till this line. So we know we are not enabling inspection, but we are enabling network isolation. We enable pacemaker. We don't want to run Tempest. We are including IPv6 and cloud deployed with SSL. So looking at the feature set file should make clear what part of the deployment we want to activate. UI validation are done now. So this is an obsolete to do. So where are the other part of the configuration now? As you can see from here, one part of the configuration was dedicated to the nodes configuration. No, here we have network, but anyway. The topology is now configured in this file here. You can include these with the -n configuration, the argument for Quickstart .sh. And that should be self-explanatory what they're doing. With this, we are
just real quick, Gabrielle. Sorry, I just for the group added documentation links for the feature sets and the nodes on lines 23 and 25 of the Etherpad.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So with this included, this configuration file should be clear that we want to deploy an HA deployment with 3 controllers on 1 compute. We are setting some of the variables for the nodes. This affects, of course, the setup of virtual machines. This is used also by the TripleO CI. The TripleO CI script to understand how many machines we want to create on OVB. And then, yeah, all that is topology related should be included in this file. So also the control scale argument for the OpenStack, the cloud deploy should be included here.
I'm not sure if we can see the current screen that you're working from, by the way. I'm not sure if you're trying to demonstrate from the terminal. We're still on the requirements.txt or Vim.
The requirements.
No, I see config files.
3 controller comp YAML.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Ooh. Okay. So the rest of the configuration is usually environment specific and is not included in Quickstart. So it's something that include at some kind of configuration that is always also is only useful for local deployment. For your local deployment, it's not included here, of course. An example of what is excluded can be retrieved from the TripleO CI repository. Yeah, okay. Okay, so after the deployment is done, we have launched the Quickstart with all the arguments we wanted. One way to access the undercloud and the other nodes is to launch SSH specifying the configuration that is included in the local working there, the one that you clean with the -- clean. And the file is called ssh config ansible. This is created dynamically based on the result of the deploy. Well, the Quickstart run. I'm launching it here. I understand why it takes 2 minutes for me to SSH into the machine on my local configuration, on my local deployment. So I have another shell here with the undercloud deployment. With a failed deployment, but that's okay. Just to show that we can SSH into the undercloud here, and then we can do all the things we want. We haven't installed it undercloud. Well, this is not installed because it failed, but you can see here that we have the script undercloud installed here. And if I wanted to, I could launch the undercloud install as the document requires. Okay. Now that we have a successful deployment, maybe we have played with it. The next step, the next scenario that Quickstart want to cover is reproduce CI results and be a development tool for developers. So Quickstart brings the ability that TripleO CI had, that builds building RPM packages from upstream changes, using DeLorean to build the packages and make this possible in the local deployments. So there's a set of roles in extras dedicated.
Those are on lines 35, 36
On
of
the
the
other
ether time.
Okay. So there's a set of role in extra dedicated to this purpose, and since this is pretty standard workflow, and for the developers, we give it a name. We call it dev mode. So what the dev mode does essentially is activate those tasks in Quickstart extras. So build test packages, and then install build REPL. What happens is that we are building the package from a change in DeLorean, then we are creating a repository, and then injecting the repository into the other cloud image, and then set it to high priority. So all the packages there are installed naturally during the deployment. There is a commodity script in Quickstart that is called dev mode that is doing exactly that. Quickstart, of course, uses images to work. It downloads the images. It's possible to use cached images from the local machine. What dev mode does is using the latest promoted TripleO CI image. So we are to be sure that we can reproduce CI results. And what this script does is to activate those parts and act as the environment variables like Zool changes and Garrett change ID. This is the variables are usually used in the upstream CI to identify, download, and build the change we want to test and doing it locally. So the only manual part of this is just filling the environment variables, the various Garrett and environment and Zool environment variables to identify the change we want to include in our deployment. And then it automatically starts a full test, full deployment, and to give the result of the entire deployment. So this worked for some time of workflows. And to reach reproducibility closer to 100%, we are dedicating some efforts to fake multi-node and OVB deployments using libvirt. So one could be able to understand what is going wrong with a multi-node deployment if it's not a problem with the multi-node, the node creation itself. Usually using a local environment and libvirt. We're not there yet. The next priority right now is to complete the CI migration and make upgrade super stable. So it's in the work, but it's not the next priority. So let's look at what Quickstart is doing on the CI side and what has changed from the previous tool. Okay. So we started the first phase of the migration a little more than 1 month ago, and we're currently migrating only multi-node controller-only job, so not 3 nodes right now, for all the branches and all the scenarios, including the basic non-scenario job. The second phase will have, which will have to happen in the next week, involves migration of the OVB job for all the branches, including the promotion system. So right now we are using both old and new CI scripts. So all the new CI system, the one that uses only Bash and Quickstart. And from the developer point of view, what makes the main script to decide which tool to use is the presence of the keyword feature set into the job type, not name, someone may not be familiar with this, Infra prohibited us to make flow decision based on job names, because those can be changed at any time without warning. So Zool is passing a job type variable called job type, and on that, all the job assembling decisions are made. So if the job type contains the feature set, Quickstart will be used. The feature set keyword, Quickstart will be used. Otherwise, the old method will be used.
Gabriel, are you going to go back to the dev mode, or should we answer the questions about it?
Please. I stop talking.
Yeah, so there was a question about what --no gate does, and it just keeps asking you questions about which change you want to integrate in your development environment. So if you do --no gate, then it just sets up a dev environment from the current master.
Okay, and so if hi, this is Janki here, and I asked on the chat the question. So if I understand it correctly, if we want to check, if you want to test a particular patch in the local system, then we give under --no gate and the change ID for the patch.
No, if you want to have something included, a change from Gerrit, then you don't use --no gate, just start it dev mode sh, and it will ask you to insert the change that you want to incorporate in your build, but it has to be on Gerrit for now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Attila. Okay, back to what TripleO is doing right now. This is a job that uses Quickstart, multi-node on the chase. So this is a basic known scenario job. So the console changed a lot, of course. Now includes a lot of Ansible flow information. They are not very usable for by the debugging. Also, one other thing that is that Ansible design it does not allow us to see to follow the proceeding of the broader cloud deployment like the old system. So we imagine some workaround for this, but it's not high priority. So right now you'll have to wait for the job to finish to know if it passed it. So no sneaking on the deployment part. So scrolling to the bottom, maybe just searching for play recap. You can see now the recap here. Nothing here has failed because the deployment passed, but you can see if one of these steps failed, you can see what the last task that failed, and understand where the deployment stopped. We are using Ansible no caller here, but we still have the caller, the ANSI caller, so I'm not sure what's happening. So there is another playbook after the main playbook that's run here that just collect logs, but its output has been completely redirected. So this is the thing we want to look first when deployment has failed. But where do we find the errors here? So we maintained some backward compatibility. So we still have post CI here. So you will want to check this to understand what went wrong, but we are duplicating this file. The default workflow now is to look at the place where the scripts are rendered from the plates. Usually the the OMDO of the non-root user for Quickstart, it's Jenkins in TripleO CI, but it's stuck by default in local deployment. And this contains everything that we create, we render from the templates. For example, we have here our overcloud deploy shell script. So this is rendered from the template. And usually when we use this template to bash technique, we always redirect its output to a log file. So, for example, the overcloud deployment here, we have this log, and that's where you should look for the result of the deployment. For the proceedings, to follow what happened. There is usually a log file related to the bash script that is rendered from the template. So you may see here that if the deployment fail, a failed deployment log will be created, and that's the place to look for what's happening. The log that, and have a log that include all the useful informations to solve the issue. We are also maintaining the host info, but this is also deprecated. You may want to look at the host information in a different way in the extra directory and the val logs. And there's one file for each command that was previously in the host info file. So we have a single file for all the RPM, for the RPM list with all the versions. The rest is pretty much the same. Okay. One final note about bugs. Bugs differently what's in the documentation should be filed on the TripleO launchpad with the tag Quickstart, and adding maybe the CI tag if it's something specifically related to TripleO CI. So it's not TripleO Quickstart anymore launchpad. It's on the TripleO launchpad and Quickstart tag. I invite you to read the documentation. Wes added the relevant part of the documentation in every piece of the agenda. There are a couple of things to change, like the bug here, but it's mostly up to date and contain pretty much all the information I share with you today. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for my side. If anyone wants to add everything, or
there was one thing in the chat that it's probably not a good idea to use your work laptop or something that you really care about as VirtHost, because Quickstart needs, to download images there and recreate libvirt network. So it's a better idea to use a separate machine or use OBD.
Yeah. Also, I'm not sure how much we tested it with a VirtHost that is not CentOS or RHEL.
Yeah.
So if you have a Fedora laptop, it may not work. I'm not sure what the status is for the Fedora.
Yeah. In the documentation, what we have on that is that it's possible it can work. Some people have reported that it has. We don't have a CI environment that can run Fedora at the moment, so we're unable to validate it, and therefore it's not officially supported at this time. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. How to we write dash dash no gate to not integrate any upstream change. But what if we want to test a particular patch? Then how to test it? Like how to point to the patch and then test it?
So that devmo.sh is an interactive script. It's kind of an extra layer on top of quickstart.sh. If you start it, you will see. Just try to clone quickstart and type /devmo.sh, and it's interactively going to tell you what to look for and what to insert there.
Okay, so devmod always will ask for a upstream change.
Yes.
Okay, and if I don't want any upstream change, I'll just say devmod.sh no gate.
Yeah, and
That will
afterwards.
pull master branch.
Yeah, this is a good way for anybody to, like developers, to get familiar with Quickstart apart from, deploying normal releases.
Okay, one more question. I have done this devmod.sh with NoGate and all, and it worked fine. And I had the undercloud and overcloud deployed, installed, and working good. But I cannot see under the watch list. I cannot see any of the VMs. I tried with root user. I tried with stack user, and I do not see any of the VMs there.
Yeah, we have the example VerShell console command that you would need to invoke to see that. It's running in session mode, not system. And I'll find that
Okay.
and paste it in the Etherpad.
Okay. And one more. After all these things, I did this overcloud node delete, and I deleted the compute node. After that, I from the undercloud, I again ran overcloud deploy.sh script, and I was guessing that it should create a compute node because the Ansible playbooks would be such that it will demand one controller and one compute node. But then the compute node was not created.
Deleting the overclouds should be done if you want to redeploy it again. Should be done via heat. I think the OpenStack node delete would delete it via ironic, and that is not entirely reversible in what we use, I think. So it would be OpenStack stack delete overcloud. I will type it into the chat.
Okay, and then recreate the whole overcloud stack.
Yeah.
Individual deleting nodes won't and redeploying won't create the same node again.
Yeah, it will not. If you only redeploy like the overcloud stack, it will not create the node in ironic.
Okay. Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Just a quick note for dev mode, there is the possibility to, it's not really tested, so you want to use it with a grain of salt. There's a possibility to include a local change, not only the get rid of all changes from upstream. I was interested in this, but I didn't have time to implement it thoroughly. So I think there's a possibility it's not really tested.
And
There's
Carla, oh, go ahead.
just the question there, how can I use Quickstart to deploy OVB? Is that a question of how can I use Quickstart to deploy an environment on top of an OVB cloud, or how can I use it to actually deploy my own OVB cloud?
Means I have OpenStack Cloud, means I want to deploy an environment on RDO Cloud.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's what I assumed it was. But so that's in progress. We're currently trying to deal with some issues with using shade. But yeah, that's a high priority, is to be able to just run Quickstart against RDO Cloud for folks that don't have a vert host.
Yeah, and when that will be ready, it will be something like devmo.sh -- ovp.
One quick note, Carlos asked on line 65 how we can get OSP deployments. It's not entirely in scope for this conversation, but I did add some documentation on how to do that on line 66. Those deployments will be using the a base rel or whatever base OS you supply it for the undercloud, and the overcloud images are supplied via the overcloud image RPM provided by Release Engineering. So, and that also, the same sort of thing also works with RHN content or CDN content.
Okay. Thanks. We are at time. So if you have any more questions, feel free to ask in TripleO channel. We are looking there. That's it. I don't think there's anyone that should want to add anything else. So thank you for your presence, and yeah, so we'll see you all online.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you,
Gabriel.
Gabriel. That's
Thanks,
really
Gabriel.
great.